Good day, Vancouver. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Vancouver Real. My name is Mike Zaremba, and I'm podcasting on behalf of Andy and Omid, who are not here. So I'm by myself today, which is okay. From Vancouver, BC, at 70 West Cordova Street, which is where we have Float House. Float House is a 9-tank sensory deprivation and flotation center where we host floats all day long. We got 9 tanks here. Fridays and Saturdays were 24 hours, and we have a 5-tank center in Kitsilano. So go to floathouse.ca to learn more about flotation therapy. And also we'll plug Omid's YouTube channel, Omega Point, O-M-E-G-A Point, which is just a little creative outlet for him where he puts these montages of and compilations of very famous philosophers and speakers together. And I always say they're very entertaining and inspiring, which they are, but more importantly, they kind of get you to think a little bit and to question things in your daily lives, in your culture. And, so I wanted to say that as well. They're not all just, rah, cheerleading kind of stuff. It's a little bit deeper than that, and it gets you thinking a little bit. So that's Omega Point on YouTube. And we're going to dive right in today. We have a good friend of ours here for the first time, the better half of our episode 19 guest, Caleb Jennings, is his partner, business and life partner, Sheleana Jennings. And first of all, Sheleana, thank you for coming. And,
thanks for having me.
Welcome to Vancouver Real. And mind me while I work the cameras here because I got to get used to doing all the jobs here. So we're going to start with what you do and where you're from and how that all came to be. Then we're going to get into a little bit more of, we'll just let the conversation flow naturally. And but you are the co-founder of a company called Young and Raw.
Yep.
And youngandraw.com is your website. And what is it? What the hell is Young and Raw, Sheleana? Tell us, inform us.
So Young and Raw it's a little bit challenging to put into like a one-liner, but I guess if I had to, I would say it's like a starting point. It's like a leaping pad for people who are like eating pretty crappy diets. It's a really big transition into eating real food, and so we just found that giving people like an opportunity to cleanse and to reset their bodies is a really beneficial way to just all of a sudden wake up to, oh my gosh, like I have energy, I can feel good. And it just seems like after people do a cleanse, they all of a sudden want to eat healthier. And so it's sort of like one of those ways to just wake your body up. So it's an online website with lots of free health information, recipes, articles, and then we do free 30-day green smoothie challenges, and then we also have like paid programs. We have like our flagship program, which is the 21-day raw food reset,
right? And
that's like the main one that we've had like over 15,000 people go through. It's super transformative. We have women who have lost like 71 pounds and changed their entire family's lives through it. Women who are in their 60s who have reversed, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, things like that. So it's a starting point. It's not something that we promote as a lifestyle. Like I'm not a proponent of being a raw foodie or a vegan for like your life, but it's something that seems to just wake people up. So I started it when I was in that space myself. Like I had chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalance. I was like 35 pounds overweight because I had a kidney stone operation.
Whoa.
And
how old were you when you had that?
That was when I was, it wasn't that long. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but it was like, maybe I was like 21.
Okay.
I'm almost 27 now, so it seems shorter, but
right.
It's actually quite a while ago.
And that was all before you guys started Young and Raw?
Yeah, that was before I even met Caleb, actually.
Okay.
I had kidney stones, and that was a combination of lifestyle and stress.
Yeah.
And then I got out after my second experience with kidney stones, and I just like literally like blew up like a balloon. And then I started doing this like really weird binge eating, which I've never ever done in my life, and it was like literally uncontrollable. It was so weird. Like I actually like ate 12 cookies like from Subway in bed once, like 12.
You're just laying out a regular Saturday night for me.
Are you serious?
No, I'm joking.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But you're
okay. Nice.
Well, you're bigger than me, and
it's true.
You could put them back, but for me it was like kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
It was this weird overnight like as if my body was like possessed.
Bizarre. Yeah, that's really. So you never had like that compulsive kind of eating habit before?
No. I would love to actually do like more research and like figure out like there must have been some weird trigger. The more that I've learned is like, you know, when you go under anesthesia in the hospital, like if you have any type of operation and they put you under, that actually shuts down your adrenals. Like it shuts them down.
Whoa,
and I didn't know that until even just maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or even a year. Like it was recent that I learned that.
Yeah, I think there's something, well, I don't know, I mean, I've never really looked into the science of anesthesia, but I know, you know, 11 weeks ago, today pretty much, when I had my surgery and I went under and everything like that, when I came out of it, my body was freezing cold. I was like shaking and shivering, and you know, you're mentally agitated, obviously, and you know, I'd be curious to know more about what else is shutting down other than just like your awareness of consciousness and the pain sensations and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It'd be kind of fascinating to find out.
Yeah, I'm still kind of digging into it because the thing is like. You come out of surgery and all of a sudden like everything is different and everything is more difficult, and I was like, why is this? Like how did I just balloon up overnight and found out, well, it turns off your adrenal glands, and if you've got any type of weakness with your kidneys or your liver or anything like that already, well, it's going to be really hard to just flip the switch back on. Like you're gonna have to work at it.
Totally.
And so I tried everything, and I think it was just really hard to be compliant with where I was at in my mindset. It was like hard because I used to be a dancer and like a gymnast and a figure skater. And I was just used to always having like a cute little body. And then all of a sudden I was like big.
Yeah.
So the mindset was really difficult. And then I tried raw food and it just kind of fell off. The weight just dropped.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was like your whole catalyst for getting into the raw food diet for a while.
Yeah, I did it for myself. Like I just had tried so much, and we went down to this place. It was called Organic Lives.
Okay.
A lot of people probably remember it.
Totally.
It's not there anymore.
Yeah,
and we sat down with the owner, Preet, and he was like, yeah, like, you know, what are you doing right now? And I was doing a really high paleo diet at the time, but like not the right way.
Right.
I think paleo is beneficial if you're doing it right. I wasn't doing grass-fed. I wasn't doing organic. So it was just not doing anything to my body. So he was like, oh, well, why don't you just try this for a week? And I was like, okay. And I did. And it was the first time in a long time that I didn't crash throughout the day. Like I was falling asleep in the middle of the day and like sleeping for 6 hours, and I wasn't menstruating, like nothing was working in my body. And it just all started working, and I lost the weight. And so I was kind of documenting it like just at my house. I was like taking pictures of me with a smoothie and like, hey, here's my smoothie. And people were just loving it. And I was like, well, I'm always, everything I do, I like try to turn it into a business. It's this weird compulsive thing I have.
Yeah.
And I was like, got to start a business around this. But it was kind of more just like, I'm going to start a Facebook page, have like a muse project.
Right.
And Caleb actually came up with the name Young and Raw. And I was like, done, put it up. And for about a year, it wasn't a business. It was just like a muse project of like building a community and posting pictures. It was very personal to begin with.
Yeah, so it's kind of documenting your story, your transformation through this whole process.
Yeah, it was like sharing recipes, sharing the story, documenting it, getting really personal. And I was much more like, I would say a little bit more fanatical about raw food and veganism, because I think everybody goes through those stages, like with anything that you're passionate about.
Yes,
it's like,
especially when you see results, like you saw, like, oh, this is amazing, like how much it's transforming me, right? And
it's easy to get caught into that mentality that, oh, if it worked for me, it will work for you, and if you're not doing what I'm doing, then that must mean I'm wrong, so you need to do what I'm doing, because then that means I'm right. So there's that phase. Grew out of that very quickly, but still went through it.
Yeah, so is that one of the early kind of lessons you learned from this whole thing? Is like, okay, even though this is something working well for me, that it's not going to be for everybody. However, it can be used to maybe jumpstart a lot of people.
Yeah, I learned really quickly. First of all, it didn't work for me long term at all.
Oh, really?
No, it was like not my body. I mean, my ancestors, like my great-great-grandfather was like pure like native Indian tribe leader. Like my ancestors were hunting and literally living in teepees. Like my grandfather and my aunt lived in a teepee, like caught fish and ate that wild diet.
Right.
And I really do believe that we need to look at our ancestors and a little bit of our lineage to gauge how our genetics and just how our DNA is structured to find the right diet for us. It's very unique to each person.
Right.
And I had to learn that through my own experiences, but also just noticing that it doesn't work for everybody. And I realized that raw food and doing a plant-based cleanse, even just going 30 days, which is a really awesome experiment for people. It's not so much that we want to convert people, because we don't. It's just that once you do that, like, your whole world opens up. Like, I went from eating, like, I would eat fast food, I would eat non-organic and just grain-fed meats and pretty much whatever. I went from that, then I did this really extreme diet, but afterwards then I found my own balance, which includes like high quality wild game. Like, you know, I don't just go to the supermarket and grab a pack of beef. Like, I go and get like grass-fed elk or goat, and like, it just sort of changed my perspective on food. Yeah. Which is what I'm aiming to do, is like help people snap out of it.
When you approach your diet that way, especially let's say with meat, is it more about the nutrition for you and like what you're getting from the food, or is it more about how it's been processed and raised and all that kind of stuff?
It's all of it, because it's all interconnected. Like, it's a holistic question, because if you have a grass-fed meat where the animal has been treated inhumanely or raised improperly, then it's not going to be, in my opinion, I mean, there's lots of debates about this, but just my personal philosophy is that it all counts. You want to have animals that have lived happy lives, and I really appreciate like drawing from the native traditions and the Aboriginal traditions, where they really honored that animal and thanked it, and there's just a much more like gracious attitude towards eating animals than there is now. And it's interesting, because I can remember back when I was still completely vegan, like I was plant-based, and I would think about it and I would be like, I just don't feel connected to nature, which is interesting, because a lot of people who are vegan say they're the most connected to nature. And for me, like in my heart, like I would imagine myself like really wild, like wearing leather and like running through the woods and like hunting and like just being really wild, and that didn't fit with where I was at. I was like, that's not really aligned with what you're doing. Like, I just couldn't imagine being that way forever. It's just not, I felt like there's something inside of me that's a lot more wild. And so it was a really great like progression and place to come from.
It's cool that when you can go back and watch, or like kind of just look at your story, look at where you were coming from and all that, and see how the different experiences in your life have shaped and impacted the different events that who you are today. You know, and that's always I think it's a good activity to do once in a while for yourself. You know, to like go back and kind of take note of what you've done, you know what I mean, and bring that forward. Now, with your success with Young and Raw, like it kind of grew from this Facebook page, and then where did it go from there? How did it kind of become a business?
It was like we were on a train or something, and I'm an idea generator, so I was just like, oh, we should do this raw food course, and so I just started mapping it out, and
at that point, how big was your page?
I don't even remember. I mean, honestly, probably like 2,000 people.
Okay, so really small, relatively.
Yeah, super small. Like, it was a little community, and it was interactive. But
just as a side note, what is it at now, just so people have a comparison?
Like 360 something thousand. I don't even know. We get about 2,000 new likes a week.
Cool.
Just organically. Sort of just it's on a track of its own.
It's got its own momentum going behind it now.
Cool. But it was super tiny. It was just like this little thing. I have a background in social media though, so like that's just my territory. I've always been able to do stuff on social media without much else. And then we decided that we were going to go to Hawaii. So we went to Hawaii for a little bit, and then things just kind of took a turn there. I don't know, a lot of it was energetic, a lot of it was mindset stuff, and just like kind of like ran out of money. Like we didn't have like a successful business back then, and we literally pretty much were just broke and stuck in Hawaii, and I had to like borrow money to get home. And then we were like staying in a friend's apartment who was like, she was in Switzerland at the time, and it's just kind of funny because like we literally were pretty much homeless and had like no money, and there was like maybe we had like $14 or like $18 for like 2 weeks of food. We're eating like a big pot of like veggie soup and like protein and water, and I was like, we're building this program and we're gonna pre-release it, so we're basically gonna give people the opportunity to get in for 50% off in order for us to give them each module week by week.
Cool.
And Caleb was like, well, I don't know, like, if we should do that. I was like, well, we're doing it because we got to eat, and, like, people want this information, so we're not going to let having it all be done get in our way.
At that point, did you kind of have the sense that it was going to work out, that it was going to turn into this thing?
Yeah.
Or was it more out of desperation, just like, I got to try anything? Or what was it like at that point?
Well, I was feeling desperation. I mean, I stopped working a job when I was 19. I worked a job maybe when I was like 20 or 21 for like 2 months, and that's pretty much it. That's a whole other story for another day.
Sure.
That was another interesting time of my life. But it was like pretty dire. Like, I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner at heart, and so for me to even think about getting a job, I was like, no.
So let me just kind of cut into with that. You don't think of what we do right now as a job, really? Or
no,
how do you kind of frame it for yourself?
I mean, it's my company, right? So it's like I feel like I have more control.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my greatest fears, and like, I know that this is very different than a lot of people. Like, a lot of people will come to me and say, like, how do you run a business? Because, like, aren't you afraid that, you know, it's not going to work out or whatever? And it's like, not really. Like, I'm not afraid of that at all. I'm afraid of having a job because for me, that doesn't provide me security. Like, somebody could take my job away at any time. Sure, my business could fail, but at least I know that I was behind that and I can go out and do something else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I've always had this bootstrapping overconfidence about me, and I think it's partially just like my background. Like, I grew up in foster care, and I was out on my own at 16. Like, I was paying my own bills and paying rent and working 2 jobs and all of that when I was 16. So it's kind of hard to be afraid once you've done that.
You just never really knew any other way. You're just
I just know how to hustle.
This is how it is. Yeah?
Yeah. It's like, this is just what you do.
If you make something happen.
Stuff's hard, you just make it work.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal. I mean, everybody would like to start a business with investment capital and have a home and food and stuff. But if you don't, that's not an excuse.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I knew it was going to work out. The thing is, we had a whole almost year to get to know this community of people who literally I spent so much time interacting with, engaging with them, like emailing them for support. Like, I really got to know these people.
Right. So you really kind of connected with the community that you were building already, and like obviously being an entrepreneurial minded person, you're getting market research done. Like, you're listening. You're being very aware of what's going on.
Yeah. And I learned so much.
Dots. Yeah.
Because, you know, I would get all of these questions that I was like, I've never thought about that, but it just put me on this path of research.
Right.
But then I started to realize that these are the same questions over and over. I should build like a program.
Right.
And yeah, so I did. And, you know, it was kind of like just a shot in the dark, like, here's the program. And it was, I think it was like $200 or something. In the first month, we sold like 4 programs.
Okay, wow. Humble beginnings, eh?
Yeah, but you know, like, we went from literally not having food to $800. Was like, wow, we can go to the grocery store and eat. Like, I remember standing in the grocery store and we had to choose between a head of celery or a head of broccoli.
Oh my God.
And I sat there and I said to Caleb, I said, you know, this is training because this is how a lot of people live every day.
Yeah.
And so whenever I have ups or dips, you know, we all have dips in our businesses, I think. Like, I think it's just, even Donald Trump has lost his fortune. Like, I think those experiences are meant to humble us and to remind us that we are, no matter what, like, we're very fortunate. And to even just know how to create wealth. Like, there are a lot of people out there that don't have that drive or that understanding or just know that they can do it, and so they experience that every day rather than it's just a story to tell, right?
Yeah.
So
actually, I was going to ask you that. Like, do you think it was those kind of that circumstance and scenario that gave you that, or is it something else that you've always had to give you that sort of initiative, that push, that force to like make this thing a go, to just make it happen? Is that something you've always kind of had, or is that something more out of the situation that it came from?
Yeah, I've always had it.
Yeah.
I'm sort of I'm a weird human. I'm like, everything, it's weird. It's like, I try to calm it down because literally, like, probably like 4 or 5 times a day, I'm like, think of a business idea and I like, check the domain, maybe it's available. But it's like, you can't do every business. But I always just have this drive to like make stuff work, and I'm usually pretty confident in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously having a community was motivation enough, because if you have people buying into a program that isn't built yet, it's kind of like, you got to build that program. And one of Caleb's friends and mentors, Mark Joyner, he was on a call with me and he was like, he's like, the one piece of advice that I have for you is to always deliver to your customers when you say you're going to deliver, never be late. So I took that very seriously. So I was pulling like wicked all-nighters, like 3 nights a week, like building the program. Like it was exhausting. I shouldn't have done that. Now that I look back, it wasn't good for my hormones at all.
Okay.
But
yeah.
it made us grow.
Yeah.
And I think it was like by the 6th month or something, we were doing like 4 or 5 grand a month. And then within the first year,
Wow.
I remember we went to Mexico. By then we were doing $10,000 in sales, which was like incredible because
Yeah.
it was a very short period of time, right?
That's amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially from nothing. And that's the cool thing about, I think any entrepreneurial venture is, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
It always starts with just an idea. And is it something that kind of like encapsulates you and like encourages you and it makes you enthusiastic and you get charged from it? That's all it is, though. And then it's just the act of following through. Because I think a lot of people get the ideas and they get excited by the idea, but they don't know how to start. They don't know what to do. And, you know, I don't know, do you have any insight to like, you know, what do you start? Like, let's say you have the idea, it's in your head.
Yeah.
What do you do from there? What's the next step?
Check if the .com is available.
Check the .com, eh? Yeah. I was going to say write stuff down. Get writing, start fleshing out the ideas.
Yeah.
Blueprinting.
That's probably a better way to do it. What I do is I literally, like, I always am like, okay, I start with the name and then I'm like, I check the .com.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart too, because I know, for example, with Float House, and I don't know if I should be saying this, but we're not that big of a podcast yet, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, just wait, you're going to.
I know, I'm jinxing it right now, but floathouse.ca is what we have. Floathouse.com isn't available. And, you know, we've checked into how much it would cost to get that, and it's, you know, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
You know, it's negotiable, of course, but we've put in an initial offer of like $5,000, and, you know, he didn't budge at all, or she didn't budge at all. So we're just like, okay, you know, so that's, in terms down the road, that is I think a good piece of advice is to check the .com, because if you can land that, thing's worth a lot of money, and it might kind of influence your initial idea or the name you want to call it or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's a good point.
Also thinking about branding, I mean, like, I wouldn't have named it Young and Raw if I had known how successful it would be, because it really did put us in a box. Like, we're pretty limited. Like,
right, just by the word raw.
Yeah,
and
it's
young?
just, I mean, it's just kind of like, we want to talk about other things. Like, I'm super passionate about women's health and hormones and like other lifestyle, moon cycles and other lifestyles and like different ways of eating, which for me are completely, you know, healthy and sustainable too. But we're just inside of this limitation. So I think that, you know, thinking about like future pacing is important.
Yeah, well, I think though too, like you got to question that. If you go too broad, it's just going to be too vague, and people don't know, well, what are they about? You know, at least when you do have it narrowed down, people know, okay, they know raw food, they can do a detox program. This is how I can use this diet plan or program to help me just, you know, as a starting point, as a catalyst to change something in my life, whether it's physical or biological or emotional or whatever it is. Like these cleanses they can be used, on multiple levels of our being, you know what I mean? And I think you guys really get into that stuff. Like you're very aware, and I just know you from personally knowing you, you're very aware of the energetic properties of life. And even though it's largely a mystery, we kind of have this feeling that there is this underlying energetic awareness and aspect to life. And are you in a resistance to it? Are you in flow with it? You know, is it kind of, you know, numb right now, or is it full on? You know, and these are huge things that as I grow and mature and evolve, that I'm becoming more sensitive to. And, you know, likewise with the feminine masculine complex, you know, that's why I'm happy that you came on the podcast. We were getting a little too heavy on the masculine side. I knew that we needed some divine feminine. So, you know, and that's why you're here. You're
very
bringing
like
balance to us.
masculine shamanic energy here.
Right. You mean at Float House in general, or the podcast?
I feel like Float House in general is a pretty like shamanic style. Like, I mean, I don't know. I personally love that there's men around all the time, but there's nothing wrong with having a few women sprinkled into the mix.
I agree. No, and we have one female attendant right now. We're going to be adding more when the opportunity comes. But to be honest with you, I mean, it was really the people that are here are just the ones that really wanted to be here, and their enthusiasm is contagious. Like, we just want people that love floating and that can be knowledgeable and that want to float. You know, everyone that works here, everyone that works here floats.
It's a really unique blend of people that you found too, because like you go to some establishments and people are just working jobs, and like here they're like full on immersed in it, and it's awesome. And they're knowledgeable too, which I love, and they're exploring in their own ways, and I think that's great. Like, I always get to learn new things and have wicked conversations with people like after my float. That's
a huge part of it. The huge part of it is like that community part to it, you know, and talking about your experience or how you are going into the experience and after the experience. All those things they do play a part of the overall experience that is here, you know. So we try to tap into that. So it's cool to hear that
you guys are doing a good job.
Thank you.
You're number one.
We're number one, baby. What part of like business do you get the most thrill out of? What part of it do you like love? Is it like the branding, the marketing? Like when something works, like what is it that
when something works is always good.
Yeah, I know.
That's always a good thing.
What is it that gets you really charged up though?
It's the build.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the uphill climb.
Yeah.
In Vedic, I'm actually a Capricorn, which is interesting because in Western astrology, I'm an Aquarius.
Okay.
Which my like total wacky, weird, alternative side totally comes out. But in business, my Capricorn is very strong, I think, because I do love the whole journey. It's not just, oh, I like it when I become successful, or, oh, I like it when everything is easy. I really love every single part, like all of the challenges and the struggles, because I learn so much and I'm pretty optimistic. I'm like, oh, well, this sucks really bad, but guess what I'm learning? You know, it's just, I'm always learning something. So I really enjoy, first of all, the initial process of coming up with an idea and then being like, okay, I'm going to do this. That just happened again with me couple weeks ago. I can't say what it is yet.
All right.
But I'm very excited.
Cool.
And that's like the best part for me, is like coming up with the idea. The .com is there, and then I'm just like, okay, like this is something I'm actually gonna do. Building like just basic stuff, like getting the Facebook page and the website and all of that stuff. And like for me, I love being an online content creator. Not just in terms of like being the person to write the content, because most of the content on our site isn't from me. I love creating themes. Like I can look at somebody's blog or a business or whatever and be like, okay, I know exactly what to do, and to create content that's, you know, relative to people's needs, really exciting, unique. I love writing headlines. Like the imagery is very important to me. It's all of that stuff that's like really engaging. Like I love growing large followings of people who gravitate towards the information that I'm curating.
Right. Do you feel that's only in your online world? Because we were talking earlier, you said like when you go into a space, you love to design the space itself and like get the plants and spend thousands of dollars on plants and all that kind of junk.
Well, I love, I think they're different. I think with business, it's very like, I just see opportunities like to create your own community and your own following. A lot of people rely online in the industry. They rely on things outside of themselves or their business to generate sales or readers or whatever. I think it's really powerful to create your own following. I love that. But then with the personal stuff, like my house and whatever, like, I don't know, I'm like a Susie homemaker sometimes. Like I just get like really into it. It's fun. I like making the home really comfy, and I'm a little bit of an introvert, like hermity sometimes, especially during certain parts of my cycle. I'm like, I just want to be home. So for me to have my home environment be like completely dialed in the way that I like, it's like the ultimate. Yeah,
that's something I personally am definitely lacking. Is my home is a little, I mean, single male, you know, 1-bedroom condo, float tank in the corner. You know, it's
not such
a
a bad thing to have in the corner.
No, it's awesome, but it is drained right now. It's not full, but even still, it's a little, it's just not beautiful. I think I'll make it beautiful.
The thing is that men aren't really like designed to make their environments beautiful. I think that's one of the gifts that women can bring to an environment. I mean, some are.
Sure. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate it. I appreciate when everything's like nice and organized, everything's in its place. I appreciate it. I love it. I feel better. I get that part of it too. I definitely feel better. But for me, it's very about utilitarian, and it's just because I'm not home that much. You know, I'm out by 8 a.m. and I'm not home till like 9 or 10 p.m. So it's just like, when am I gonna have time to do it?
Yeah,
And
you'll just be like
yeah.
missing your home. Like, oh, it's so nice over there. Too bad I'm never there.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
Exactly.
I'm working at home and I'm always
So
there.
that's
So I'm
huge.
like,
Yeah.
this is pretty much my life, like where I
Yeah.
live, where I work.
Yeah.
So,
And so let's go, Young and Raw is kind of having some success. You guys are getting these sales. And then has it kind of evolved itself
yeah,
over
it's
the last few
transformed
years?
a lot over the last few years. I really took my face out of the business. Like I turned it into a brand because,
Okay.
first of all, I don't want to be a celebrity or a personal figure or
Yeah,
whatever. That's
yeah.
not my goal. I'm happy to speak and to teach and all of those things, but in the health realm, that's not where I want to be, simply because I think that it's too complicated. Everybody's too unique, and the health realm can get really judgmental. Like,
Sure.
I got so much lashback, like just even being on the face of, one of our programs, and it wears you down, like your self-esteem and all of that,
Yeah.
like to deal with all of the online haters.
Right. Especially when you're on, that's what I was going to say, when you're in the online environment.
Yeah.
People just have this green light to say whatever they want to say. Where if it was in person, it's not going to be nearly as voluminous as you experience online. It's not even close. It's not even a fraction.
Well, their empathy centers are turned off too.
Right.
Like literally, like they're doing studies now. Like there are actual courses in universities where people are studying what happens to someone's brain when they use social media. Mm-hmm. Because it's bizarre, and I'm sure we've all seen it. When you own a business with hundreds of thousands of people, or even 50,000 people, it gets real messy.
Yeah.
People can just be really cruel and verbally violent. And it obviously has nothing to do with you, but it's still challenging to take that energy on and to just even read it at all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just a really interesting dynamic. Like I have this principle for myself of how I behave on social media. Mostly I just don't even get involved in comments. Like even if I have an opinion, I tend not to share it unless it's like on my page and I'm in the mood to even bother, which most of the time I'm not, because I'm like, if you really want to talk about this, call me or come have coffee with me or whatever, because then you'll be like a decent person, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like, if you're going to comment on social media, like, why don't you first imagine that person sitting on your couch right in front of you, face to face.
Yeah.
Now say what you would actually say to them.
Totally. And not even 1% of the stuff that is said probably would be shared at that time.
No. Exactly. So that's why I just like kind of stopped. I was like, well, would I actually say this to the person to their face? And like, if I wouldn't, then I just don't say it at all. And even if it's something that's like got the good intention behind it, like it's pretty hard. Like most of our communication as humans isn't verbal.
Right.
It's like I think we've only had language for what, like 10,000 years or something?
Something like that.
Probably
yeah.
botched that number, but it's not very long considering how long we've been around. So how did we communicate? Body language, facial reading,
tones,
energy,
sounds.
heart waves, brain waves.
Right.
Not words.
No.
Words are what mess it all up.
Right.
So,
That's like the last kind of part of communication. That's like the cherry on top. And actually, it was cool. I was listening to this Terrence McKenna lecture all week, really kind of preparing. But the one I sent you, actually.
Yeah.
Did you listen to it?
No.
Okay. Well, good. I'll explain it then. So I'm not just repeating crap to you. And he said that it was really cool, and I think you'd appreciate this, is he theorized that women were the original people to produce language, to communicate. And he was describing in that period, like, 10,000 years ago or so, these hunter-gathering societies where the men would go out, obviously just because of physical attributes, and women with children and different physical attributes. So the men go out hunting and have to be quiet and kind of stoic and like just wait for the animal to be rushed by or whatever. So they sit there in silence, where the women are gathering and
socializing, taking care of babies.
Yeah, and they got to communicate like, oh, well, there's these roots that we can eat by the river under the flowers with the yellow petals. So they have to be able to communicate that, very, very specific details. Same thing with food preparation. So I thought that was really cool. I was like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And he went on
I don't even remember you sending that to me. I would have to watch it because that's like exactly what I've been talking about a lot.
Awesome.
Lately.
I posted it on my Facebook this week because it was just, I listened to it like 3 times because there's so much good nuggets in there.
Yeah.
And he also went on to discuss the feminine and we'll get into this because you're a doula, right? What's a doula for people that don't know?
Doula is a Greek word. It means woman who serves.
Oh, okay.
I take that very literally in what I do. I serve women in their birth,
Right.
and some people call it labor. Some people call it in your birthing time. If you're using
Labor's
more
a bad
positive
word now
language.
that I think about it. I can see why
Yeah.
labor maybe wouldn't be the best word
It
to
implies
choose.
hard work, and not to discount any woman who's ever had a hard labor, because they do have them, and I've seen it. But at the same time, I really do just like to approach it with a more positive language, and just sort of respect like the power of birth, because
Right.
birth in itself is a completely unique experience. It's a rites of passage, and
It is, and this is what he was saying, is that the birthing process for a woman is a complete boundary dissolving experience. It's like doing a psychedelic. It's like taking a strong dose of mushrooms
Yeah.
or ayahuasca. It's completely like your body's flooding with biochemistry and hormones and a whole whackload of chemicals. You're pushing this physical gigantic thing out of your vagina.
it's not that gigantic.
It's pretty big. What else is going to come out of that, when it's other than that? Like that's, you know what I mean? And so women have this boundary dissolving experience built into their system, especially back in the hunter-gathering days,
Yeah.
where they'd be having that experience probably like multiple times in their lives.
Oh yeah, like
women
over
would,
and over and over, because
Right.
women produced children and
totally.
built community,
Yeah.
very literally.
Yeah, and the men, he said, can go from their birth to their grave, and if they're careful, not get themselves in a hot spot to have that experience, And so he coined this time period where in the grasslands of Africa before it became desert and desertification happened, with the mushroom, the psilocybin mushrooms that were there, and how that was used to kind of put into check this male-dominating aspect of a lot of primates. And most primates are a male-dominating group, right? And he said that the mushroom was this way to balance that out and counter that and give the men this boundary-dissolving experience to check their egos and not develop that sort of ownership over dominance and things like that, So it was a super fascinating talk.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, so I think it was called Monkey Mind, Gaian Mind or something like that, Earth Mind, because I'll go into more about that stuff afterwards as well, about how the Gaian Mind is something that, he equated the whole system of the Earth, all the processes that are happening, all the life and the geological process. It's just like this giant organism in a way. But beyond that, instead of the Earth just being alive, which it very clearly is, there's life all over it. It's a moving, dynamic, shifting form. But he also said there's a mind behind the Earth.
Yeah.
And the Gaian mind. And people are like, oh, that's crazy talk. Well, and he just clearly said, look, is it crazy for a monkey to have a mind? Us being primates, we have a mind, but not the Earth in this big developed system. He said the miracle is the monkeys that have the mind. So it was very, very fascinating to hear him talk about that.
Kind of reminds me of this book I'm reading called Shakti Woman. It's by Vicky Noble, and I picked it up actually, it was on the shelf, and I thought, oh, this looks kind of neat, and it was about female shamanism, so I thought, well, that's going to be rad.
Yeah,
and I had no idea it's mostly about menstruation and birth and the history of women all the way back from Neolithic times to all the way through to agriculture when our power was stripped from us, and to now to where we're at, and just the facts and some of the archaeological artifacts and things that they found that we look back and a lot of people reference the Neolithic times as awful and really vicious, and people were just murderous, and sure, some of that may have been true, but what she's proposing and what she's found through her research is that a lot of those artifacts that scientists would find that they assumed they were men's tools to be used for violence were actually tools of midwifery and counting, things like the moon cycles for women who were breastfeeding their babies and things like that. So the masculine scientists put quite the violent perspective on it, and there's a whole other community out there that's saying, that's not actually what those tools were used for.
Yeah.
It may not have been as violent as we think, There are a lot of things about living that way in the tribal communities as hunter, as gatherers, that were really beautiful.
Well, he said also too, and I don't mean to put McKenna up on this pedestal, but he was
he's rad.
He's an amazing thinker. And actually tomorrow on YouTube, there's this new feature-length documentary on his life being released.
Oh, wow.
And I just came upon it last night, and it looks amazing, and it's called The Transcendental Object at the End of Time.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's
tomorrow.
YouTube. Tomorrow's being launched, so just YouTube search that. But
wicked.
Yeah, he. What were we just talking about?
We were talking about the hunter-gatherer societies and
right. So and the warfare and the evidence for warfare, and he said that it was more agriculture that really started the warfare, and like before agriculture happened, you wouldn't find like the arrowheads and the weapons for warfare nearly as condensed as you would. You find the odd one here and there that maybe they would use in a hunt, or maybe the odd tribal encounter or something like that. But it wasn't until after agriculture kind of started where you have perimeters and defenses set up to protect this surplus of food and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where you'd see more mass condensings of arrowheads and things that were the evidence of like warfare. Like this is where two tribes met, battled in defense of their food surplus and their women.
Instead of working together like they used to.
Yeah, so things have changed in that sense. And it was really cool how he highlighted this period between, he called it like the paradise relationship at time or something like that. But that was a crazy little tangent. But coming back to Young and Raw, and where it's going and kind of the evolution of it, where would you say, like, how is it different now than it was back? And we're going to come back to all that other talk before. We're going to make this a big round of loops.
Well, first of all, it's not about my life whatsoever.
Right.
I have no celebrity role in Young and Raw. It's not about what I do.
You mean we're not going to see the Sheleana breaks the internet butt shot?
What's that?
You haven't seen the Kim Kardashian thing?
Oh, jeez. You pay attention to that?
No.
Come on
if
now.
you're on the internet,
nobody got time for that.
I know. If you're on the internet, I don't think you could have missed it.
I am on the internet.
So anyway, so it's Kim Kardashian in this magazine shot. It's the cover, and it's basically her back and her butt just lubed up, oiled up. Yeah, so you did see it.
I did see it. I just didn't know it was like, I didn't know people actually cared about it.
Wow, it's trending.
Right, so it's a lot of other crap, but yeah.
So what my point is, we're not going to see.
You're not going to see. I mean, I'm happy to show my ass on the internet, but probably not in that manner.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd probably choose a different color of fabric.
Fair enough. Nice. But so you're not the face anymore, really.
No,
it's more about
I've
the brand.
moved out of that a long time ago, and it's also taken a shift. Like, we took that original program down. It was very much a lifestyle-oriented program, so we don't do any lifestyle-oriented programs in terms of shifting people's lifestyles long-term.
Right.
We do a lot of transitionary lifestyle stuff, so everything is focused on getting you into a state where you can design what works for your body and learn to listen to your own inner wisdom, your own intuition when it comes to food. And so sometimes that does mean spending 30 days eating a certain way, eliminating a lot of the foods that you would normally use as a crutch to just sort of get that inner listening happening.
Right.
A lot of people say, oh, my body doesn't talk to me. That's not really true. It does talk to you all the time, and often it's just hard to decipher the messages. And when there's so much going on, so much going wrong in the body, it's really, really challenging to know what to do.
Right. So do you kind of look at the whole, if you're eating all this kind of a crazy random diet that's, maybe not the best for you, a lot of processed stuff, a lot of whatever it is, and then by stripping away the kind of more artificial produced processed content to a more refined, or not refined, but to a,
whole.
Yeah, whole, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's that, and it's also, we do focus a lot on mindset. Like, we have a master hypnotist who custom creates programs specifically for our cleanses or our meal plan programs.
Cool.
So we wouldn't just put out something that was, oh, hey, eat this and then you're gonna feel better. Like, sure, you're gonna feel better. Are you gonna be better is the question, right? So a lot of it is combined with mental work too, and emotional work. And I'm a firm believer in that. It's really like, it's the mind, the body, it's everything. So we focus on the whole big picture. And my hope with it is that people will just learn to trust their bodies more. And once you've gone from such an extreme like one end to the other. If you've done raw food, like it's going to be pretty hard to just go to McDonald's.
Right.
Like it is. It's really challenging once you've done that. It's like resetting your body. That's why we called our program the 21-day raw food reset. It doesn't mean go raw forever. It means reset your body and now see what your body wants to eat.
Right.
What is it actually telling you?
Right. And that's actually, you said there's 21dayrawfoodreset.com is like another site that you guys have.
Yeah, that's like our flagship program. Cool. You can just go to our website, youngandraw.com, and you'll click on cleanses and it'll be right there.
Sweet. But yeah, when you go to McDonald's after doing something like that, like even if you were craving the taste of it or something, right? You go and have that. Probably afterwards, you're gonna feel you'll feel the difference more than anything. You'll feel like
you
the
for
headache,
sure feel it.
or
some people throw up. The thing is I've had so many people be like, "Wow, I went through that cleanse, and now I just eat differently." Like I tried eating something and I felt horrible, and I realized that I was feeling horrible like that a lot more than I even noticed. And the thing is like nowadays, a lot of us walk around feeling crappy all the time, but we don't have a baseline for what it means to feel better. So we don't think anything is wrong. And whatever, wrong could be a relative term.
Sure.
Still, do you want to feel good all of the time? And like, do you want to just settle for feeling all right? Oh, I feel fine.
Yeah.
Like, well, you could feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm an optimist. I love to optimize like my own health. I like to feel as good as I possibly can. It's important, right?
Yeah, and that's something I can equate that with floating is, you don't really understand how stressed you may be until you go into and have a really deep sensory deprivation experience, because all that tension will just melt away. And then you're like, oh, I had no idea. Exact same thing with a raw food reset program or some sort of significant diet change as well, right?
Floating is awesome for that.
Floating is awesome for that. Yeah.
I relied on it heavily for a while when I had really intense adrenal fatigue. I was floating every day almost at 3 p.m., which is when
that's right.
most practitioners are like, if you have adrenal fatigue, watch yourself between 2 and 4 p.m. Do you crash? And if you do, your adrenals are shot. So I just started hopping in the tank at that time, and it's just my master number. Like whenever I float at 3 p.m., it's like an awesome float.
Cool. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Hopefully all the 3 p.m.s don't get booked up for the rest of time. But
No. I know. We're going to see our schedules. Like,
it really does work, and I've tested it out. I've had other people try it, and everyone that's done it so far, they're like, yeah, that actually really worked. There's something about 3 p.m.
Yeah, well, you see that as a time when a lot of people will take like a siesta.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like
Snap time.
Siesta on steroids.
Yeah, for sure.
But a little bit more mindful, maybe. And I see the content difference with Young and Raw now too. Like you said, like it's not just about food and recipes and diets and things like that. I mean, that's a part of it. It's a big part of it. That's where you have a lot of expertise and the other people within your company, because you have like holistic nutritionists, and who else do you have like kind of contributing to the content of Young and Raw?
I mean, there's it depends. When we're building programs, we bring in nutritionists, we bring in prenatal nutritionists, we bring in naturopaths, sleep experts, people who do colon hydrotherapy, herbalism, Ayurvedic counseling. We really bring all of the experts together to create our programs, because it's important that you have some really awesome, badass people creating the content, because people are going to be using that information with their bodies and their health. And then, like the content that we create that's free on our website it's focused on lifestyle, it's focused on personal growth. We do talk about relationships sometimes, and cleansing, and like the mental work, and then like lots of recipes and stuff. And we publish for a lot of really great companies like Vega. They're a food company located here in Canada, and they publish a lot of stuff on our website. And we have some really cool contributors who are doing awesome stuff in the world, and so we try to be that voice for the people. Like we get about 1.5 million or so page views a month.
Wow.
And it's growing. And so it's not about us or what we have to say. It's a lot of times we want to be that platform and that voice for other people in the community who have something to share. So that's sort of the direction that it's going in, is we want to support other people in the community, because we've got this massive community, this large following. We've got hundreds of thousands of people on our Facebook page. We've got millions of people checking out our website. Why not help the other people out there that are passionate and have a message? Why not help them share it?
Right. Cool.
So that's kind of where it's going.
So yeah, you're kind of leveraging this community that's there, that's kind of like-minded, that's...
Yeah, and giving them the best that we can find and from the best people. And, you know, we have apps now, like we have a few apps in the App Store just for iPhone and iPad, which makes the Android users very angry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Why? How come? It's just because...
There's just a much bigger barrier in the Android store.
Yeah.
First of all, monetizing apps is a lot more challenging, and it's pretty expensive to build an app.
Sure.
Like it can be like 20,000.
Because your apps are custom, I assume, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so with the App Store, it's a lot easier. People buy, it's proven, people just buy them. So you know you're going to at least make your money back.
Right.
For the most part. I mean, it's not guaranteed.
Sure.
It's just more challenging with Android. And there's just more like development barriers and stuff. So it's not that we're not going to ever do it. It's just path of least resistance with that one, right?
Yeah. And it's funny too, because even with some of our analytics we're getting back, with the podcast even, we're seeing most of it is through iTunes.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we have Android, but it's just, you don't see it nearly as much, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not the same environment, it's not the same market.
Yeah, it's weird.
And so I don't know, we'll try it out. We're going to try it out. We have to be strategic about it because, you know, it's a lot of money to just be putting into something that you're not going to get back, right?
Totally.
And we do so much for free already that we make those kinds of things available in one form or another. If you can't get the app, you can get the ebook or something, right? So
totally. Oh, that's cool. You got ebooks as well?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the future direction of Young and Raw right now, is to develop this community content and supporting different players in that?
Yeah, and we're doing a lot more now with other partners. So we're going to focus on some really fun topics over the next year or two. Like we're going to talk more about things like sleep and water and
Sweet.
And just, you know, we're going to get more focused on like simple ways that you can optimize your health, and then bring in some really awesome experts, because I think like things like sleep are so important, and it's one of the things that we neglect the most. And I've studied sleep, not extensively, but enough to know how important it is, and I've used it as a tool in my own detox and health protocol for balancing my hormones. And it literally was like the missing link. Like before I optimized my sleep, my hormones just weren't coming into balance.
How do people know if they have maybe a hormone imbalance?
There are many ways to know.
Some of the kind of signs, typical signs.
Well, I mean, just speaking from personal experience, for me, it was like my skin. I had all of my amalgams taken out about a year and a half ago. And right after that, it was like crazy. Like I had the worst skin ever, and I've never had acne or breakouts in my entire life until I had my amalgams out. And so that was a big part of it for me, because the thyroid is what helps to filter heavy metals, and if that's messed up, then it's going to impact your kidneys, and then all of those things are going to impact your hormones, because the liver is responsible for your hormone filtration and all of these things. So one way is just like, how's your skin doing? Weight. There are some people who just can't lose weight, or they can't gain weight no matter what they try. Both of those things are an issue for people, and both of them can signify hormonal imbalance. Low libido, moodiness, like irritable mood swings, like crazy, like what we call PMS in our culture. It's totally normal to have fluctuations in your cycle and to be a different woman every week, to be feeling psychotic or angry or super depressed and have negative thoughts. Those things don't need to happen. Those things aren't a baseline for normal, and that's our culture believes that they are. And women are degraded and told that they're crazy and psycho and all of these things, and both men and women don't understand that. So
I was going to kind of say that seems to be something that is often overlooked, is the cyclical nature of the universe and our lives. And obviously with women, they have a monthly tracking of that with their moon cycle. You know, so you can kind of, you're forced into recognizing this pattern and these behaviors of patterns and things like that. But I know for guys, there's not a lot of like clear-cut indicators, at least grossly, that you can hone into to illustrate this element of cyclical nature that we have, you know. And this is something that I'm trying to bring more just personal consciousness to. is recognizing, because I know, like, sometimes I'm like, I'm up, I'm vibrating high, I feel amazing, and every interaction is like kind of just flowing and sinking and positive, and then I'm down. I'm just like, you know, everything is just harder, and I feel tired, and I feel just less energetic.
Yeah.
And but I'm seeing how it's always changing, it's always fluctuating, it's coming in and out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's something you kind of, I think I've never really asked you about this before, but I know you're starting to host like these moon gatherings and stuff like that with women.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this, because I see you posting about it online.
Men always want to know, what do you do
Yeah.
at the red tent gatherings?
Yeah, what are they called?
Well, it's sort of up in the air. I was going to do a red tent.
Red tent,
I'm
cool.
trying to figure out where to actually get a red tent. I'm very
Yeah.
literal in this. I want an actual red tent. I
Cool.
started it out with just a small group of some of my really closest sisters, and we're doing every new moon and every full moon we're gathering and
Cool.
talking about things like sexuality and birth and menstruation and just snuggling and playing with each other's hair and really just being sisterly, like
Cool.
supporting each other and loving each other and just kind of tearing down those walls that a lot of women have, I think.
Because this is probably something that was in our nature a lot, or women's nature a lot to have. And
Yeah.
we live these very isolated kind of lives now, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool that you're doing this initiative to at least bring that into your own life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Well, part of it was an intention that I really, I know that surrounding ourselves by women, first of all, for women, it's really good for our hormones. The more time women spend around men, the worse it is for them.
Interesting.
And if you look back, like just as you were saying, traditionally, we didn't live in nuclear families. We didn't have one man, one woman, then the babies, and that was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. It was like, there may or may not have been monogamy. There may have been partnerships. There were primary partnerships, but there were plenty of women surrounded by women and babies. And then there were the men. And sometimes they would mingle and gather and they would make love and they would have children and eat and things like that. But they weren't just sitting together every single day, living together, or, you know, coming home from work and it's just one person there. Like, it just wasn't that way. And so, I mean, women are sick. Hormonally, we're sick. Like, our menstrual cycles are out of balance, and a lot of us have issues, and it's partially the environment. Our environment's super toxic, no matter how healthy you eat or think or whatever. And I also think that it's partially like our nuclear structure. Like, we don't spend enough time around other women, like supporting each other and loving each other. And so I was like, well, you know what? I want every new moon and full moon to be surrounded by women, even when I don't feel like being around them, even if I had the worst day. Because I found as soon as I'm with them, I'm just at ease and I'm like totally blissed out.
Cool.
And yeah, it really helps. And I think men need to do that more too.
Yeah. So how many people will you have to these gatherings typically?
It started out small, so I started off with the magic number of 13. Because
That's not that small. That's pretty good size.
13 is a very sacred number. If you look back at like secret societies and women's societies where women were the head council and they would meet during their bleeding time actually to make decisions for the society or the community that they governed, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It was sort of like a magic number.
Cool.
If you look back and like things like the 13 skulls and all of that, it's a cool number. So, and very witchy, which I like. So I started with 13, and then we're gonna be opening it up to the community. We wanted to all kind of get a baseline for what's needed, what we can contribute, what we can bring to women in our community, and we're gonna open it up. And my girlfriend Kelsey, actually, she's doing sisterhood circles, which is much larger. She's bringing in women from the community already to do like. We sit in a circle and we share whatever we need to share. There's a limited time.
Right.
And we host those at my house a lot too. But yeah, it's needed. Like, we're all sort of doing what we can to bring women in the community together and to connect. And a lot of us are talking about encouraging our men to do the same thing.
Yeah. And I know, well, your partner Caleb's kind of starting to do this a little bit.
Yeah, he is.
There's, we had an episode with Connor with
his,
Man Talks, you know, and which is open to both men and women in the city.
Yeah.
And it's mantalks.ca. If you're not aware of it, go check it out. It's really cool. And so there's going to be, I think it's really important to have male-only bonding experiences, women-only bonding experiences, and then mutual,
together.
But in a very sincere context that's maybe not fueled by alcohol.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's never any alcohol there. I personally don't drink anyway, so it's never a problem. But when we come together, it's to do personal work. And sometimes it's like some of us don't feel like talking, and so we're laying somebody's lap and they're just rubbing our head or tickling our arm or whatever, but it's that emotional connection and that love that we need. And then bringing together the men and women. That's my girlfriend Heather and I were talking a lot about doing that. We're going to create a man and woman circle together.
Cool.
And it's going to be an opportunity for the masculine to share some of their challenges and also just, the passages from the books that they love, so women can get their perspective and vice versa. I really feel passionate about talking about things like menstruation and birth with men so that they can understand the power and the beauty behind those events in a woman's life.
I think bringing more feminine energy and awareness into the masculine realm is a positive thing. I'm not talking like demasculinizing and anything. I think men need to be who they are and feel what they feel, but also just being a bit more conscious of the feminine properties of the universe. And I don't just mean that with relationships with female human beings. I mean, there is masculine and feminine, yin and yang properties of the world. And it doesn't matter how you want to relate to those things, but that's, the more I've kind of experiencing and I'm feeling these sorts of polarities and energies, it's a good archetype to use to define them and to relate to them and to recognize when, I'm trying to think, there's been several examples in my life where I'll end up, whether maybe as an all girls yoga class or whatever, I'm like the only guy there, literally. But I just look at it, I'm like just bathing in a sea of ocean feminine energy and just letting it wash over me. And actually, I think there's something to that. Maybe it's all in my mind, maybe it's placebo. I don't know. I don't care.
No, there's something to it for sure.
So, you know what I mean? But the sweat lodge that we did last weekend was mutual men and women, which is great. Because I like the context of bringing some element of ritualistic to it. Like you said, on the full moon, on the new moon, coming together, doing some sort of whatever it is. And so the sweat lodge, there's men and women. The women always enter first and always exit first. It's just having like these little things that have meaning to their society at a deeper level, but it's cool to be a part of it and to experience it, because I think it does add an element. Well, it makes you become aware of it. It's like, the women are going in first and now the women are coming out first. So it's like it forces you to become aware of those different elements, and doing things like that together that are kind of really holistic feel really good to me, so it's cool to see you guys kind of taking initiative with this, and I'm kind of curious if down the road, I don't know if you guys are really smart. You and Caleb are very intelligent people, and I don't know if like you're kind of priming us for your ultimate goal of this, kind of neo-tribalism community or something like that, maybe. I don't know.
No, I'm going to be completely upfront and say that I am absolutely doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that? So tell people what
it's like
your vision is.
It's my ultimate like utopian vision that's actually realistic utopia.
Because that's part of it too. It's like, realism being
It
real.
is realistic. There's a lot of things that are unrealistic that I would love to have happen, and at this point, what I'm aiming for is to have a piece of land where we can grow our own food. We'll use permaculture techniques to grow food year-round, and just everybody have a piece of the land and everybody build their own sustainable homes. Some people want to build container homes, some people want to build wood homes, some people want to build cob homes. That's your choice. I would just like to create a space where people can come. They don't have to worry about paying their land taxes and paying their rent and paying all of their bills and their water bills, because we can use solar power and things like that. I have quite a few friends who are really, really skilled in this arena, so it's definitely not me who's going to be doing it. Like I said, I like to curate experts, so that's one area where the experts will be taking care of it. But the vision is to go back to a more tribal way of living and to have community again, where like I was telling you before, like if somebody hurts themselves or if they're injured, it wouldn't be a question of like, oh, like, do you need help, or can I call this person to come help me? It would be like, oh, so-and-so is injured, so who's taking care of who today? It just wouldn't be a question. Or a woman's giving birth. All of the elder women would be around her. The younger women would be preparing and cooking and watching and learning. Postpartum, women wouldn't be taking care of their baby by themselves. Mom and dad wouldn't be exhausted. You know, it wouldn't be
Right.
that way. There would be people in the community just supporting each other and taking care of each other. And it's not as easy as it sounds of just,
Totally.
oh, sure, we'll all just come together and live together and it's going to be magical. There's a lot of logistics around it, but it's not impossible. And it's not like I want us to all live in the same house. I want us to all have our own space. I still like to be on my own
Yeah.
sometimes, a lot actually.
Yeah.
But if you had a massive piece of land, like 200 acres, and you had people who could come that were your closest friends, who are basically your family, because I believe we choose our family, how magical would that be to just be supported and have
Right.
every full moon a gathering between the men and the women? Every new moon, the women meet at their own fire pit somewhere else on the land, and they celebrate the new moon. The men
Right.
can go hunting together, like,
Yeah, and I think, it's hard for people to even imagine that, and it sounds very
Yeah.
like fairy tale and utopian and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But I mean, nothing's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, and it's not going to be like a mystical, magical. Well, it will be.
it would be in a sense.
But also too, it has to be able to work. It has to be safe. It has to be
Yeah.
sanitary. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, if that's something that personally, like, yeah, there's tons of that sounds extremely attractive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such like a massive, like, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
It's but
That's why I want to start with getting like a piece of land and just building a house on it.
sure.
You can build some really gorgeous houses. Like, I'm talking like very beautiful looking homes. And at the high end, you're looking at $125,000. And I mean, personally, I don't think that that's very much considering what we spend.
Totally.
The houses here are millions of dollars.
Right.
If you wanted, you could build a home for 10 grand.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And a beautiful shipping container home. Some of them are really nice, but you have options. So it's starting like small.
Right.
Like, let's just find a piece of land that we can turn into farmland. If it's farmland, then that impacts like our
Right.
tax liability and stuff. And then just build a home and start small. And if somebody wants to bring their trailer on the land, then that's cool.
Right.
I'm just looking for a different way of living where we're more family and there's more community and there's more support, especially being a doula and being passionate about menstruation and birth and women's, power.
Yeah.
And supporting the masculine and being real men, like truly like embodying being what it means to be a man,
Yeah.
not just what society tells you.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we change the way we live in order to do that.
Yeah, well, I think starting out with these communities and these gatherings, that is the place to start, because you got to build the family first. You got to build the
Yeah.
community, and if it's meant to grow, it will, and
Yeah.
it will grow. It's just like, okay, what direction is it going to go? And I know you see those online graphics of have you ever seen that one meme where it's like a graph and it goes from point 0 up straight? It's like, this is what I plan, and then this is what happens, and
Yeah.
it like wiggles all over the place and
Yeah.
contours. So, but nevertheless, like having a vision, having a passion, creating, and then doing the first steps. And
Yeah.
like you're right, like bringing people together in a more kind of ritualistic, holistic fashion.
Yeah.
That is the first step. So, and it's already bringing that vision life you have to you now. That's
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah, and
there's
I already have
empowerment to
lots
that.
of people committed to like they want to live on the land. And
Yeah.
the reason that I came up with this idea wasn't my own utopian vision where I was just laying in bed one day and thought, oh, this would be great. I wonder
Yeah.
if anyone
Wanna
would want that.
escape or whatever. Yeah.
It's more like every person that I talk to wants that. Every person in my life anyways. And we're talking like soccer moms, we're talking people who live in West Vancouver and their nuclear families to, my hippie friends, like everybody that I talk to wants it.
Yeah.
It's not like,
So what do you think that is?
I think it's just people are shifting. People are opening their hearts and they want community. People want to be supported. People don't want to do it all on their own. It's unnatural and it's unhealthy and it's too much pressure. And like we're rooting back to hormones again. It's like the reason all of us are so stressed out and our hormones are all out of balance is because we're living as if we have to do it all on our own.
Right.
As if we all have to be independent and we can't ask for help and nobody can support us. And if somebody does something nice, we say, oh no, you don't have to do that, instead of just saying thank you.
Yeah.
Like, we're not living as human beings anymore. We're living as like independent, I don't even know, like robots almost, like
Right.
only computers have to do it all like as one
Yeah.
unit, you know, like
Yeah.
human beings need to support each other, and
Yeah.
it feels better anyways. Like
It's true. It's true. And I think there's going to be, societies never are stagnant and static and motionless. There's always an evolution happening, cultural evolution. There's always change happening. And, these ideas of some of the indigenous wisdom that was there, and a little bit more harmonious balance they had. Obviously, we live in a completely different day and age. Obviously,
Yeah.
we live in megatropolises, have the internet, have like millions and billions of vehicles running around everywhere, so things are completely different.
yeah,
But what does that future look like that we can create? What do you want to create?
Yeah.
What future do you want to be a part of?
Yeah.
What future do you want to instill into your potential children and all that kind of stuff? And these are things that it's worthy to approach, because it's never going to happen if you're not even thinking about it or feeling it, or two, if you don't do something has to be done. And whether it's just a simple act of recognizing the moon cycles and recognizing the different cycles in you, that's a place of origin, that's a place of starting. But I think it's really cool how you guys have that's one thing that you get from being an entrepreneur, is like once you kind of make something work and you've done it and you have that success I'm not talking financial success. I'm just the success of having a vision, having a plan,
and seeing it through,
and doing it.
Yeah.
It gives you this kind of liberation, this confidence of okay, I did it once before, so what do I want to create next?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's something that can really empower people to take more control of their situations, of their lives, to create the futures they want to have.
Yeah.
And not be dictated to and controlled, and just be swept up in the cultural, flushing of the tide.
Well, how many people are living in a society that they never signed up for? I mean, I spend a lot of my time walking in the forest. That's where I get my best ideas. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? How did I get here? I don't want to be part of this system. I didn't sign up for this. This isn't how I want to live. I don't want my tax dollars to be going to these things. I'm appalled. But I don't have any way out. I feel like it's like a prison. And so how can I create that way out? And
Right.
I'm not talking like, let's all stop wearing clothes. I mean, I'm down for not wearing clothes. I know a lot of people are, but I'm not saying like, let's go start wearing loincloths and live without running water and hunt for our food only, and, never order anything off Amazon again and never use the internet. That's not, I love the internet, okay? I'm thinking, let's take the good of technology that makes our lives easier without damaging the world, so extensively, and then pair that with a more natural lifestyle. Like, do we really need all of the things that we have in our modern cities to live?
Yeah, I think it's very clear there's lots of things that are excessive, a little extravagant,
Yeah.
unnecessary, wasteful. And one of the things that always gets me is like new cars. I'm like, well, what happened to all the old cars?
I know.
Where did they all go? Why are they just all gone now? And that's really noticeable for me, because it's such a big object. It's this big consuming object. Don't get me wrong, I drive a car all the time. I need my car for my work. It's a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
But I also look at I don't have this impulse to go buy the newest car unless it's a Tesla. Tesla kind of
That's
has
a
me.
whole other conversation. It's like
Yeah.
a man thing. I don't know.
Well, it's just neat because you can have.
You could just get the Leaf.
It's true. You could just get the Leaf.
$100,000 car, or you could just go get a $15,000 Leaf. But apparently I'm told by every man that it's about the experience of the car.
Well,
you have to
you know
love
what?
driving it. I'm like, I just need to get where I'm going. I don't care about that.
You know what? I don't care if it's a Leaf or not. I just want it to be physically comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't care how it looks. I drove a PT Cruiser around for almost a year, and before it started to basically melt and become undrivable. And that thing's not cool, and it had cigarette stains and burns
Oh,
in the
wow.
roof, and it stunk like cigarettes until I was able to air it out and everything. And but it got me from A to B. That's all I
Yeah.
really cared about. That was what the primary objective of that tool was, to get me around town.
Yeah.
So it served its purpose. And the Tesla can do that The Leaf can do that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be physically. And that's another thing too, because I have, back stuff. I have back issues. I felt like the PT Cruiser was physically making me worse.
You have different physical constraints than I. I can fit into anywhere.
That's true. Yeah, you could
it's also a man thing. It's okay to want a Tesla. Almost every man I talk to wants a Tesla. You can have a Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I don't have this urge. It's not like my goal for working as hard as I do, obviously. But they are cool because they look cool and they're electric. So it's like, sweet, that's awesome.
Kind of futuristic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Elon Musk is like this weird, enchanted fellow that's like a very, very bold visionary.
He is quite the visionary. Yeah. He is quite the man.
It's cool. And that just shows you the kind of progression of like when you have this idea and you plan through it and you follow through with it and it works. Like that's obviously someone that's done that how many times over. And now he's just like, well, let's go to the moon, and that's literally what he's trying to do, or whatever, like this whole space program and stuff. Or
like he released all of his designs and everything.
Yeah,
like
it's badass.
Yeah, he's really cool.
It's super cool.
There's some really, really revolutionary people. Him, like people like Ray Kurzweil. Just like there's people out there doing some really wicked, for the general population, confusing things. Some people think it's very scary, but I think it's both.
Right.
It could be dangerous or it could be really, really good for us. And it comes down to how humans choose to use it, the technology and the power that we have to manipulate nature. And so we have to, I think, take both into account. Like I'm definitely on board with, like I'm a little bit of a futurist. I'm okay if people want to print tracheas and print body parts and all of that. And at the same time, I wonder, okay, well, what happens when we have no incentive to take care of our bodies anymore because we can just print out a new organ, right? Where does that incentive come from?
I think with that, I don't think it's going to, so you'll have a new organ, whatever that may be, but there's an underlying level of life force energy that will infill that organ with beingness. And that's the essence of life. You know what I mean? This is why, like, you hear that whole downloading your consciousness to a machine, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, one that seems really far away. Maybe it's not. Maybe the exponential growth of technology will make it accelerate here faster.
I don't think it's that far away, to be honest.
But how are you going to capture the life force energy?
Yeah. Well, and those are questions that a lot of people like us are asking, and a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people don't care about it. And so that's the challenge, I think, with everything is it's not so much about what is the consequence of it, because the consequence is based on the person who's in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of us asking these questions and have these concerns, and there's like opposing sides. Like some people are just like, oh, I hate technology and I just want to live naturally. But I think if we could just come together a little bit more and have better conversations about it and how can we use it to our advantage without taking advantage, that would be
I think ultimately it comes down to the individual and our consciousness and our minds. And are you paying enough attention to that first before we handle and make decisions on these big global scales, on these big, massive, influential projects and tipping points? The primary focus in my mind should be getting your mind and body and spirit in some sort of alignment, getting them harmonious, getting them communicating with each other and listening to each other and being connected with all three elements of it, So it's something that, hold on, we're getting a little distraction here. That's what happens when you do a podcast in a float center. You have
party time.
Yeah. I think it's going to be, there's a lot of potential things that we need to take care of personally.
Yeah, we just have to start small. Yeah. When we start thinking about like, oh, how are we going to change the world and change all of the systems, I just get kind of frustrated because I'm like, well...
Change yourself first.
Change yourself first, because even if you have billions of dollars, there are people that have billions of dollars and some of them aren't using it very wisely. Yeah. But even if you did, people that don't have a lot of money sometimes think money can solve all the problems. And sure, you can be more comfortable, but at the end of the day, like money isn't going to fix it, because it's the mindsets behind that money that need to be on board.
Yeah.
And one person with a lot of money isn't going to be able to change all of the systems that we're living under.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really work that way.
Totally.
So the best thing we can do is just work on ourselves and create the life that we want. Literally just focus on what is it that you want. If you're part of the system, you love the system, you want to be part of society the way that it is, that's great.
Yeah.
Be part of that then. If you don't, question it.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Do something about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what? We've gone 120, an hour and 20 minutes. I'm impressed for the two of us, you know. Didn't know how it was going to go without Big Andy in the house and Omid helping us out. But you know what? I think we have a lot more that we could dive into. Maybe we'll say for part 2 of Sheleana Jennings. So with that, I want to sincerely thank you for being a part of today's show.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks.
And I hope others did as well. I'm sure they did. youngandraw.com. Check it out. Go like it on Facebook. Lots of always amazing, very informative content flowing from that stream. So check it out. And it's floathouse.ca and Omega Point on YouTube. With that, do you have any other things to share with us today?
I'm sure we could dive in a lot more next time.
Okay, cool. All right, Sheleana, thanks so much for coming on.
Cool.
And until next time, to whatever is.
Thanks.